Welcome back to Sampstra Games, the place to find new strategy games, and today we're going to continue my All Objectives Complete Guide for Unity of Command 2, the Barbarossa DLC. Today we're going to do Heeresgruppe Süd mission. So let's jump into the tactics window. Welcome to the tactics window where I'm going to tell you how to complete all the objective in Heeresgruppe Süd, the Barbarossa DLC of Unity of Command 2. So during the first turn, what you gotta do is you gotta take Premiership Crossing. You just want to push through. You can use some of your HQ's abilities, you can use some of your engineers, but generally you do have to take this on turn 1. The way I'm gonna do this scenario, and the way I recommend that you do it, is by actually taking Lvov on turn 2. So we're gonna go kind of all in on Lvov, and the reason for that is because we need to control this railway so that we can supply the units near Dubno and Rivne. Because the main problem with this scenario is that all of your units here, they will be out of supply. Even if you place 5 supply hubs over here, the area essentially from Dubno onwards, so like from here in that direction, will be out of supply. And that's a really big problem, especially because in this scenario the enemy hits really hard and they do like to cut off your supply, so you'll end up in a situation where your units are weak or out of supply for 1 or 2 turns and the enemy is hitting you very strongly. So the way I like to solve it is by trying to take Lvov very early and trying to control this supply railway at turn 3 or 4. It's going to make sure that at least some of these units will be supplied. If you can take control of the railway even faster, that's even better. I do believe there's an alternative strategy where you can focus on Dubno and Rivne first and then come back to Lvov, but it's not what I've been doing. So how do we take over Lvov on turn 2? Well, first thing you gotta do is, after you take over Promissory, you want to move down here towards this bridge, and then on turn 1 you want to take some unit and you want to move it here somewhere on this supply railway to essentially outsupply this supply railway towards Lvov. Then in this scenario you have the ability to take away the enemy bridge or supply hub, so you're going to take away the supply hub here. As a result, all the hexes in this area except for the hexes on this supply railway will be, and this one as well, will be out of supply. But so it's essentially everything else, everything that's marked white, that will be out of supply. This is going to be really important because that means that there are a lot of enemy units here and they will all be out of supply. Then what you'll need to do is you're going to need to push your infantry this way and this way towards Lvov. At the end of turn 2, at most on turn 3, you want to control Lvov. So at the end of, and also you're going to need to control Dubno on turn 3. Remember that you only need to take Dubno. It's okay if you lose it, and you're probably going to lose it if you go for this strategy because you're going to be really kind of spread out. The goal is to try to really control this supply railway. So once you take Lvov, you really need to make sure that you place your infantry as well as you can in this area. And you want to make sure that you use your motorized units to try to push towards Rivne, but also if you can get someone here to connect up through Brody, that would be very useful. So on first turn, I took away the supply hub. On second turn, I'm going to destroy this bridge. And then on the third turn, so that's going to make sure that all of this is now out of supply pretty well. And then on turn 3, I am going to take away, I'm actually taking away this supply hub, but it would be better if you could take away the supply hub that's here. It's under the Heeresgruppe, the objective, so you can't quite see it, but there's a supply hub there. If you could take that one away. The idea is that you want to unsupply Rivne for at least 1 turn. So that would be pretty good. So you want to take that over. So now it's turn 4 and you have taken over Dubno, Rivne, Lvov, and Premiership Crossing. Okay, let me switch the map so we can see. Once you did all of that, the second part is it's kind of like a race. Essentially what you have to do is you have to move through the supply railway. Don't try to move outside of the supply railway too much because it's the only thing that's going to keep you supplied, towards Preskurov and then towards Zhitomir. With Zhitomir you can try to take some of your units that go to the bottom, but you can also take some of the units that move here to the top. First of all, take away their supply hubs, but also to maybe try to get attacks on Zhitomir from multiple directions and things like that. And then once you take over Zhitomir, you want to push, and once you take over Proskurov, you want to move through here towards Road to Kiev, and then from here towards Road to Kiev. Road to Kiev does typically have some defensive units, so it's not like just going there as we had in the previous one, where you just kind of run there and back. You will have to do a couple of fighting. So you make sure that you want to utilize the roads, because your movement on roads is bigger. So you want to try to move through these roads, through this road or this road, because it's going to allow you to move a little bit better. But I would say the second part, Zhitomir, Proskurov, and Road to Kiev, that's kind of, in this scenario, that's actually the easier part, I would say. But it's mostly about kind of being able to control the supply railway, because the enemy cuts your supply a little bit too much, you're going to be in trouble. But if you can control the supply railway, you're going to be fine. Also, you should be able to out of supply the enemy units kind of in this area once you sort of take over the supply of some Shepetovka and move through some of their supply railways, like here and here. You should be able to out of supply the units, so you don't actually have to fight them. You just need to kind of stand on your own supply railway and make sure that they can step on it to take away your supply, but you don't need to fight them. You just kind of need to wait it out till they get weak. All right, so let's get to it. Welcome back from the tactics window, and let me show you how I did this scenario. So this scenario is actually quite rough. I'll be honest, I've taken a bit more losses than I probably should have, but you know, it is what it is, and I got all the objectives, so does it really matter? It does not. So let's get this thing going. All right, so firstly, I'm adding some specialists, as always, and moving my HQs and my supply hubs around. I'm going to show you the positioning of the HQs and the supply hubs at the start of the turn, because I think it's just easiest to see the result. So let me pause, and you can see over here, I've got the supply hubs here, and my HQ is over here, and my Panzergruppe 1 HQ is over here. Now, what I started was a suppressive fire against Przemysl. Sorry, I think it was a feint attack against Przemysl. Over here, and we're going to try to move through Przemysl as quickly as possible. You want to take that essentially on turn 1 if you can. Always good to take away their supply hubs. That's great. Now we're going to push forward a little bit. I'm not going to move past this bridge for a very long time, so I just want to have a unit there that's kind of like controlling it to make sure the enemy doesn't go through. And here we're trying to move towards Brody so that we could take away this supply towards Lwów. That's super important. If you watched my previous guide, you know the spiel, but if you're new, all the odds, assume that all the odds are 1-1 or beneficial for me, so like 0-1, 0-2, etc. If I take odds that are bad for me, I will tell you during this history mode that I took these bad odds at this particular scenario. But it's not the case, essentially, in most cases. Here, we're utilizing the zone of control with the infantry so that we can kind of move through, because normally you can move to a zone of control of enemy, but if you have your own unit there, you can cross through. So we're going to moving through, and we're trying to get towards this supply railway. This is important, because this supply railway is not connected. However, this one still is, so that's something to keep in mind, but it's going to allow us to hurt Lwów sooner. Here, I'm trying to push some of the infantry forward where I can. So essentially, as I've already said in the tactics window, the way I'm going to do this scenario is I'm going to try to take Lwów very quickly. There are other ways you could do this. You could take a bit more time with Lwów and focus first on the area here and maybe move some of the infantry downwards, but we're going to go like all in on Lwów where we can. Also, another interesting point, I've tried in a couple of the test games to take over this supply railway. However, that's not useful, because even if you control the entire supply railway, you won't have a good sort of connection here with the supply hubs or anything, because you just won't get that supply from here. It's missing this kind of like a picture that you could take over. So they are not getting supply, or this, they're not getting supply from there. So you do not need to take it too much. Like, it could be useful in the sense that their supply hub here is going to be taken away, so they won't get the supply for units that are kind of around that area, but it won't help you supply your own units. Oh, did it not show you? Okay, so I was talking and I forgot to show you a really, really important thing, so let me show you now. What I did, in this scenario, you'll have a few options to take away enemy supply hubs or bridges, and what I did here is I actually took away the 2 supply hubs that were on Wolf. Now the railway is still supplied, even though we took over this part, it's still supplied from here and from here, so that's not gonna stop, but at least all of these other units are going to be weak. Now, as I mentioned through the tactics window, my strategy is going to be going all in on Wolf, so you're gonna need, again, utilize zone of control and crossing through friendly units to bypass zone of control in order to be able to move as much infantry as close to Wolf as possible. Why is this so important? Because of getting supplied to Rivne and Dobno. I already explained the tactics window, I don't want to repeat it too much, but yeah, get to Wolf as soon as you can. And try to control this supply railway, that's the most important thing. Yeah, so like I said, all in on Wolf. Alright, here we are moving towards Dubno. Let me just show you the objectives quickly. So we have already taken Lvov way early. We do need to take Dubno by next turn. We'll try to take it this turn, if possible. Yeah, so now we have it. Because this unit has recon, so we can take that extra hex easily. What I'm trying to do here is try to make sure that I don't get out supply. Let me actually show you. The problem with the supply is that you can't place these supply hubs much closer. So you're going to have like 4 supply hubs and it's still not really going to reach. That's why we're trying so hard with Wolf to connect the supply river. But the enemy is not stupid. So they will kind of stand there and try to ruin it for you quite a lot. But I was trying to utilize the zone of control at least somewhat. Another thing I did, because I knew that I didn't really want to focus on Kovel, I actually took some of my units away from back from the river and just kind of let them stand there and be like, I'm not going to care. I'm just going to focus on my thing. I'm not going to take unnecessary damage over there. So I'm just like giving up on it. The fact that I'm not moving towards Dobo, which you probably could, I think it might actually help your game a little bit if you move the infantry through that. I haven't done it in my game, but you could. Yeah, let me actually show you. Like, even with the 5 supply hubs, I can only get supply to here, and I do need to move towards Rivne, so that's kind of not ideal. But that's kind of like the big part of the game. So what I did here is I removed this bridge. And if you look at supply, you're going to see that the units on Rivne are out of supply. It's now turn 2, so by turn 4 they will be out of supply for 2 turns, so they will not be able to attack me. But, so that was good, but yeah. I do want to point out that there are multiple ways to do this scenario. This is just the one that I chose, because you could do it with the way that you focus on Rivne and Dubno with the out of supply bridges, and then you have quite a few turns for Wolf. But because of the way they can cut off your supply to this. Now, this is what happens quite often. They're going to actually take away my tank completely, which is obviously very bad. You never want to lose this many steps. The enemy in this scenario hits very hard, a lot harder than in other scenarios. And the game forces you to really spread out because you do need to take the Dubno and Rivne. So yeah, this was not ideal. Thankfully, the tank did a huge amount of damage. If you look at the number of steps that these other tanks have, we have been able to do a lot of damage, but obviously this was pretty bad for us. Now, thankfully, you do not need to keep Dubno, so we're fine objective-wise anyways. But yeah, and also this cutting off your supply, this also happens very often in this scenario. It's just not much you can do about it. Because we cut off this bridge, that supply hub over there near, let me show you. Near Kovel is out of supply. Alright, so obviously we need to reconnect this. Let me just show you my supply right now. So we still got some supply because we had this tank here, so it's important that the somewhat connected through, but obviously we need to keep pushing towards Rivne and well, I mean, we don't need to retake Dubno, but yeah. I would like to, ideally. And I'm trying to destroy the unit so this doesn't happen again, but this is gonna happen a lot. Like I said, you have to stretch really wide and it's hard to keep the control. So it's not gonna be very easy. But that's what this whole scenario I feel is about. So it's about figuring out this kind of starting part with the Rivne Wolf Dubno combination. You can see that even though I'm outsupplied, I'm trying to push through. The main problem is that my HQ is out of supply as well, so I can't even like resupply my units or anything like that. This was not great. I was really hoping that I would be able to clear this supply river to give them connection, but there's still a lot of units there, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I'm really trying to push because I need to stand on that railway. But they understand how important that railway is, so it's just really hard to get there. Yeah, and I'm using recon. You can still see that there's still way more units there. We still need to destroy this. The benefit here is because of the way I surrounded them, they're actually cornered. So if you can get them to surrender, they will essentially suppress all of their steps just due to the cornered effect, which is very useful. Then I'm using here a set piece attack. To again make sure that I can destroy them, because if you don't destroy them they can just step on the railway, so you want to make sure that they can't do that. Yeah, so it's still gonna take one more turn before we connect this up, which is not great, but nothing I can do about it right now. Now I have some resupply, so I used the resupply here, and I still had an option to remove the enemy supply. So what I was trying to do here is out of supply Rivne. Sometimes if you get your tanks closer to Rivne, you will be able to take away the supply here that's at Shepetovka. I think this is actually a lot more beneficial, but I wasn't able to get my tanks close enough, so my range on the destruction of the supply wasn't good enough. It ended around here, and I just wasn't able to get to Shepetovka, so it's just what it is. And yeah, you can see that all of these are out of supply. Again, you can't really afford to take the steps back, so you're just gonna have to do it no matter what. Alright, thankfully they're stepping back. They're placing some more supply hubs over where we just took them. It doesn't really matter much, to be honest. I mean, it is good, the fact that we took over the supply hubs, because it will take them a few turns before they can get them back. Now, we do need to take Rivne on this turn. Let me again just show you the objective. So you're gonna see this needs to happen right now. And then we have a lot of time. Then we have until turn 9 before we need to take something else, because we took Lvov so early. Yeah, we're taking over Rivne now. Perfect. Alright, now we really need to connect the supply railway, because that's going to give us the supply towards these units that we need. Because these units at this point, they still don't have suppressed steps, but they do not have an attack action. Next turn, if they're still out of supply, their steps will become suppressed, which is very bad. So thankfully, we should be able to step on Brody. And I'm going to show you as soon as it happens. I'm going to show you the supply. Alright, not quite yet. Again, you need to get rid of the enemy units so that they don't step there. Okay, now. So let me show you now. So now actually going to be able to see that this is connected. This unit is not. This unit can move backwards, or it can be resupplied with the HQ later on. But the majority of these units will be safe now. This is very important. Now at this point, you've got 5 turns before you need to take Zhitomir. Again, Zhitomir is fairly far, so you're going to need to kind of push there a little bit. You're going to have to hurry a little bit, especially because the enemy as always will try to cut off your supply. So you need to move quickly through the supply railway, but not spread out too much so that they'll cut you off. So just make sure you're standing on the supply river as much as you can and destroy as many enemy units as you can. Some of the enemies that have all of the suppressed steps, I like to kill them just for the XP. Again, if you watched the previous scenarios, I already explained it in detail, so yeah. I did overrun. I like to take away the supply hubs where I can, because it takes them 3 turns before they can get them back. And that's really useful for you, because they just will be out of supply. Now what I did here is I just destroyed this entire supply hub. It made some of these units out of supply, but I don't plan to fight with these units, and the enemy can't hit me anyway, so I just have to fall back and I'm fine. And it allows me in the future turns to play the supply, because otherwise I had no supply hubs available, and you're gonna need them as you're gonna be moving down towards Zhitomir and Proskurov. By the way, this Proskurov is actually a little bit easier because you can just kind of push through with potentially your infantry. You have 6 turns for this, so again, because we took Lvov so easy, Proskurov is actually pretty simple for us. Zhitomir and road to Kiev it really depends how the enemy have set up their units. So again, let's just quickly. I always start talking too much in this mode, and I'm like, I already told you in the tactics window. I don't know a secret. I actually do the tactics window after I do the history mode, so that's why sometimes I repeat myself, because I tell it here, and then I'm like, oh, you need to say this in the tactics window. So, but I'm trying to be better at that. No more repeating. Hopefully you like it. Yeah, again, just moving the infantry forward. You might be able to get the infantry towards Proskurov. Yeah, I think so. With the 6th turn, we're gonna be able to get there easily. Okay, so we got a bunch of new units here. I'll be honest with you, I didn't really utilize these units as well as I could have. I mostly just try to run them around towards this railway and then connect it up, because this can give you some supply. But because we have the supply from here, it didn't really matter much to me. So I kind of didn't really use them. I kind of let them sort of hang around. Yeah, so I didn't need them for the scenario. Obviously, again, if you're playing on a higher difficulty, you might want to utilize them better. But for me, I was like, they're kind of pointless. Yeah, so this is going to happen a lot. And you can say, like, you should have watched out for that. There's so many places in this specific mission that you have to watch out for, that this is going to happen all the time. Again, this is one of the things that I said that I took more losses than needed, because this happened to me a lot. And I mean a lot. And always you have to go, you have to destroy it. It doesn't really ruin your run, but it just gets a little irritating. Personally, I prefer shorter missions with less units and less turns, because, you know, this is not like you being incapable. This is just like you not paying attention for that one hex over there. Yeah. Now you can see that all of these units steps are suppressed, but obviously we're gonna place it in a you know, better protection, and we're gonna get the supply, so it's gonna be fine up on next turn. We'll get the, oh, actually I even used the HQ to supply it, so that's even better. But yeah, this is the thing. If you have scenarios with a lot of turns, a lot of units like this one, these kind of mistakes are just going to happen, or at least they happen to me. So it is what it is. And I think this scenario especially is kind of made for that, because the game is really forcing you to spread yourselves out and to control these different railways, and there's just like a lot of spacing in between, and it just... Not that you can do it without it, but it takes a lot more effort to make sure that there are no mistakes like this. Remember, always, if you can kill an enemy with almost no risk to yourself, like here where the enemy units are fully suppressed, do it, because it will level you up, and that's going to be important for the future turns. And always utilize overrun. This moment towards Stanislavos, I was trying to unsupply this tank, which obviously worked. Probably wasn't that necessary. Honestly, I could have just fallen back a little bit. Yeah, he's gonna hit me a little hard soon, but if I remember correctly. But honestly, you can just fall back if you want to. You don't really need to fight this thing. It's like whatever. Yeah, trying to move forward as quickly as possible, but also, you know, not losing too many. Not making too much space available for the enemy to step in on the supply river. You get the point, you know, it's just... Yeah, this was not ideal. I probably shouldn't have pushed that far ahead because I had a lot of turns. So I probably could have kept the mobile unit closer to the infantry and would have been safe. But yeah, it is what it is. Well, like I said, I took a lot of losses on this one. Due to the supply mistakes and maybe sometimes about pushing too hard. Yeah, because like for Proskurov, I really didn't need to hurry that much. I'm gonna get it on turn, what, 7, maybe 8? And you've got time till turn 10 for Proskurov even. So I could have definitely relaxed in that area. But because I know myself and I know that in this game the hardest thing for me is always getting somewhere, I was trying to push really hard and we lost that mobile unit because of it. Which is bad, but it is what it is. The developers actually made a post that said that the game isn't meant for you taking up the objectives on every single scenario, so... But we're gonna do it anyway. Doesn't matter what the developer says. I admit, I was a little sad about it. I was like, hey, come on, this is my whole shtick. You can't say that that's not what the game is meant for, but it's one of the reasons why they did the ability that if you restart a scenario, you get that extra bonus, which I think is quite nice because I know, especially like in the base game, a lot of people have been struggling, and I do find that the DLC are more difficult than the base game, which is meant to be, because if you're playing the DLC, the assumption is that you already kind of played the basic game, so it kind of makes sense. I moved the HQ forward. Let me just show you over here. Yeah, this whole fighting here was kind of pointless. Sorry, the supply have not the HQ. And the HQ here and the HQ's over here. It's important so that you have a range. I wasn't sure if I'm gonna need something like set piece attack or feint attacks for Proskurov, so that's why I move it forward. And here it's just the supply, and if we're gonna need it later. I feel like this part doesn't really need that much commentary because it's literally stand on your supply railway, which is not what we're doing over here, but we're gonna get to that soon. And try to get just down, you know. Yeah, it looks like we didn't even need any special abilities for this one. And we took the HQ, and now we're going to try to push towards Zhitomir a little bit faster. So the idea I had here is like I can just grab the supply and just move towards Zhitomir this way and don't have to worry about these units, because this is like 2 tanks, you know, and they have some strength. So if I could avoid fighting them, that'd be nice. So I was like, let me try it with this tank and just try to kind of sneak around. Also, at this point, let me show you. Yeah, these units here are out of supply, so we just have to make sure we're standing on the supply railway so they can't step onto it. The reason why I didn't really bother with Proskurov is because there's no unit here, and it takes all your movement to cross the river, so I didn't have to worry about them stepping over. If they had a unit here, I would have to keep some on Proskurov. But you can kind of utilize the river trick. Like I said, here, probably just step back. Don't need to fight this tank. Or, you know, if I had been further backwards, he possibly wouldn't have attacked me. We're not sure, but like there was a chance, so whatever. I built some bridges with the HQ to see if I couldn't, because this is a destroyed bridge, so I could just kind of move around. And depending, it might seem like I built it a bit elsewhere, but it was dependent on the range of the HQ. I just couldn't build it anywhere better, so... It's like, let me at least build it there. So we got something. Here we got 2 more turns for Zhitomir, and 3 turns for Proskurov, and 3 turns for Road to Kiev. Yeah, you can see he's getting all the supply ups now. He's like nowhere to place them. He's like, oh, let me just place 5 suppliers up here. Oh, okay. Don't really need them there, but whatever. I mean, he doesn't need them, but he doesn't need them that much. Alright, now we're taking over the supply hub, which was important, and we're trying to push towards Zhitomir. We do have 1 more turn for this, so it's very important. And yeah, we're just getting there, getting close. I don't know if I can have a range to step into it this turn. It doesn't seem like it, otherwise I assume I would have already stepped there. So, next turn. They might step back into it, then we'll have to kill them, but it should be fine. Now I'm standing on Proskuro being like, I just want to be safe, make sure I have it. Wait, was the bridge not broken? No, I think it was broken. Seems like there's a finally working bridge now. Either way, we've got Proskuro, it's fine. So again, let me just show you the objectives. We just got Road to Kiev on turn 10, that's somewhere here, and Zhitomir, that's over here. I was also preparing with the infantry here so that in the next turn or the turn after that they're going to be very weak, so we can do a lot of good attacks. But even now we might have some 0-1 with 0-2, so I just wanted to move the infantry there in better position. I kind of forgot about this unit, so yeah. At least finally it's like on a supply hex. I couldn't decide with the tank, like do I want to fight it or not. It's like one turn I was like, I'm getting ready to fight Dex, and I'm like, no. And then the next time just, I gotta kill it, and then the next time I'm like, no. So just, it kept on being a little ridiculous over there. It's actually like turn 8 now. No, okay, turn 8 for the enemies. It's gonna be turn 9 in a moment, okay. Yeah, turn 9 for us. So last turn for Zhitomir. And then we have just Road to Kiev. Yeah. So I'm trying to move forward to see, if you have recon, you can kind of check it out to see if there are any enemies. I do believe, I think I had a card that allowed me to take extra recon and I used it. The card was either from this scenario or the previous scenario. One of those. And I think I used it in this scenario. I think it shows you in the history mode if you use a card, does it not? Because maybe I didn't catch it when it showed it, but again, the recon's not really necessary if you don't use it, so it doesn't matter. But you know, when I did the base game, I didn't really use the recon, and the thing is, like, it's just easier if you use it. There are ways you can, like, well, not quite go around it, but like a little bit go around it. But like if you take like step by step and things like that, and if you have like a recon specialist on a unit, but it's just a bit easier if you can just like look with the air recon and just be like, okay, there's someone there or not, and then kind of calculate the movement from that. So it's certainly not as good as a card as, for example, the supply hub. Like I wouldn't buy a recon card, like in the conferences or something. But if you get it, why not use it? So they outsupplied me here. The story of this game, of this mission, really. But it didn't matter because you don't need to hold the Road to Kiev. You just need to stand there. So I still had like enough to be able to kill it, or should have enough to be able to kill it. Maybe it would be a better thing to say. Because almost everything he's like full strength, like 7 steps, and they only have 1 unit. I've got like 4 around him, so yeah. Alright, done. So at this point, we've got everything. Now what I'm just gonna do is like kill off some of the units that have that I have good odds against, as always, just for the XP. And yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's especially all of these because they're like fully suppressed, so you can kind of go to town here. This is like for all the rookies, like I guess the way I imagine it is that the enemy's just like so weak, they're like throwing their weapons on the ground, like we can handle it, and then you're gonna be like, you're gonna take your new soldiers and be like, well, arrest them or whatever, you know, like they're not gonna put up a fight, you know. You don't have to worry about them anymore. I was gonna make a bit of a dark analogy, but then I figured maybe not. But you know, just substitute the words arrest for shoot, and he got it. Alright, so we're just kind of finishing them off. But I mean, the game says prisoners, so we're not like super cool and straight up murdering them. It's fine, you get it. Just turning into a regular Let's Play commentary instead of a guide. But like, I feel feel with this scenario, there's like there's not that much to talk about. Like the strategy is especially important at the beginning, and then it's kind of like just follow the strategy and just keep moving, and that's it. So yeah. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, write on the comments, and you can click on the right to watch the next scenario. I'll see you there. Bye bye.